everyone. We are the Good Doctors of Abbey Research. I am Dr. Kristen.
I'm Dr. Erin.
You are exceptionally welcome to our YouTube channel. We are two social scientists with PhDs who are vaguely obsessed with talking about culture, both popped and lived. And we use examples that we find in both to help us explore issues of vulnerability, empathy, inclusion, intersectionality, etc., etc. We do this in talking about everything from systemic racism in Bridgerton to how much we really like Norman Lear, as we talked about last week on this very series, The Good Doctors Diagnose. So however you want to engage with us is amazing. We're so glad to have you here. If you have a second, we do ask you to do the YouTube-y things of liking the video, commenting and telling us what you think, and even subscribing to the channel and hitting that little bell to make sure you get our notice, because we post a lot of stuff.
We do. We post a lot of videos. And this video, as Dr. Kristen said, is part of our Good Doctors Diagnose series, where we take trends we've been noticing or things that are happening in the news or culture and analyze them through our lens and training and expertise. Hence, we diagnose them. It is Monday, March 22nd. How we are through March of 2021 is not what we're talking about today, but could also be a very long diatribe. And today we are talking about perceptions of gender equity in a post-COVID workplace. And we got inspiration for this interesting and problematic idea from the In Her Words newsletter, which is a newsletter that's put up by the New York Times that I get in my inbox twice a week. And they referenced research done by the company Catalyst. Now, we should say that caveat, this research was collected in June of 2020, quantitative data, statistical data. And the report was published in July of 2020. So a lot has happened since then, but we still found some of their findings particularly interesting. And they were looking at the impact of COVID-19 on workplace inclusion, specifically focused on gender inclusion and gender equity.
And race inclusion. There was also a lot of data on that.
And race. And what we wanted to talk about were their findings about what your company's top priorities to enhance gender equality post-COVID were, and just how upsetting the findings were.
And how much trust you have in your company to do those things, which we will tell you across the board, low.
Really
low.
So I would like to think that in the 6 months after this survey was conducted, things improved, but I am a realist and a pragmatist, and I don't believe they have very much. So Dr. Kristen, what struck you most about this list of lack of trust and top priorities?
Such an excellent question. We're going to link this entire data set in the show notes, and we'd encourage you to really mine it, because one of the things that I like about this data is that they break it down between business leaders and employees in a very, I think, pragmatic and helpful way. And also the idea of parenting, because there seems to be this perception among some of the respondents of this survey that because men have had to engage with children during the day, that now means we have reached gender parity. And since June of 2020, there has been increasing research out about the disproportionate effects on working moms that COVID has had. Disproportionate effects on women, full stop, but specifically on working mothers and what that has looked like. And we are both friends with many working mothers who we are constantly concerned about because they have limited support, even with the most supportive husbands. Work environments are not often taking into account what being a working mom within the times of COVID means. But what I would like to specifically highlight in this moment is that the statement, do you believe that your company will do this or prioritize this or whatever, access to or increased mental health resources, 21% of respondents think that will be prioritized. Now, again, this was in 2020, but considering we've been banging the drum for the mental health crisis that will come with this since week 2 of the COVID, I am really concerned that
this time last year, I think we were talking about it.
Like, this is one of the problems to me of all the talk about getting back to normal, is that it's like, we're just going to hit reset on the clock or something. Like, we've all been through collective trauma for the last year.
Yeah.
And not just for gender equity. Gender equity is very important when it comes to mental health, but for like humans, we need to have a significantly higher proportion of resources, and like even just doing a quick Google and helping people figure out what therapists in the area your health insurance covers. Like that's the bare minimum. And 79% of people don't think you're going to do that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it can't be overstated how significant. I mean, mental health issues and concerns are always significant in our culture.
always.
And America, especially, but a lot of places around the world haven't done a great job about prioritizing it. But specifically, America and our obsession with heroicizing exhaustion in the work culture. But y'all, like, we've all lived through the same COVID. We've all had very different experiences. But we've all lived through it. And so, when we were looking at this statistic a few minutes ago, we were absolutely gobsmacked that you could think that you don't have a responsibility to the people that you lead and manage to ensure that their mental health is looked after.
And so, devil's advocate, I can see some people looking at us and being like, right, but like that's what the employees think. They don't actually know what their employers might be doing. I can guarantee you that all of these things reflect the character of the company already, the actions that were already taken during COVID, and they are leaning into one of Abby Research's mottos, which comes from Dr. Maya Angelou, which is when people show you who they are, believe them. Yeah. So the other things that are very, very low on the list, they don't believe will happen. 22% of people believe there will be enhanced family leave. I'm sorry. Has not COVID taught us that family leave is mandatory? Evidently not. More focus on equality and inclusion and promotions. A big finding of this is that women are terrified that they have lost out in the promotion machine.
And that it's even harder for them to advocate for themselves and speak up and be seen and heard in virtual meetings, which
doesn't surprise us since most women report being talked over in person, and Zoom is even more awkward for those of us who don't talk over people.
Yeah. And so I think the fact that the numbers on all of these were in the same range of like 20 to 30% is indicative that these people understand their culture. And it's indicative that all of these cultures of I think 1,000 workers that they surveyed.
Yeah.
Not doing great. Amazing to me that after the year of remote work revolution that we have seen, that only 30% felt that they were going to have increased flexible working options. And as Dr. Kristen said, like there's so many damaging things that can come from this belief that we can turn back the clock to the before times.
Yeah, like we are not Cher. We cannot turn back time.
Exactly. Only Cher can do that.
Only Cher can do that.
And she can only do that in song. She can't actually do that with time.
Correct. And Hermione Granger is able to in person, but even that's only temporary. It's like a visit to the past, not like an actual rewriting of history.
Yeah. Until sci-fi becomes life in that regard, we can't go back to the before times, nor should we, because what this survey tells us is the before times, we weren't super great on equity either. So why would we want to go back to a time when people were overworked, undervalued, didn't have family leave, didn't have support structures like mental health and physical health support? Like that's not a place we want to go back to. So why we wanted to talk about this, obviously it's very important. And we often use our Good Doctors Diagnose to bring issues to attention, to flag them per se. We are not in the after COVID times yet, but we are working our way towards them as we increase vaccinations and access across the country. So these are things you need to be thinking about. If you haven't already, please check out this data. Please talk to your folks ask them the same questions. Do a Google poll and find out how they feel about these issues and where there's some disconnect between what you think your culture is and what it actually is to your people and how you are doing on these very, very important issues of gender and racial equity.
And as always, if we can be a help in any way as you puzzle this through, make sure to get in touch with us. In the meantime, we will see you next week for another edition of the Good Doctors Diagnose.
Take care.